You know that feeling when you finally close the laptop for the day?
Oh, yeah. Best feeling in the world.
Right. You sit on the couch, you take a deep breath, and then instantly, like clockwork, there's this quiet, creeping voice whispering in the back of your head.
Telling you that you should really be doing something productive right now.
Yes, exactly. That inability to just exist,
Yeah.
to sit in a quiet room without feeling the need to, like, justify your existence with some kind of measurable output. It's wild.
It really is. I mean, it's arguably the defining psychological condition of our modern era. We've internalized the whole industrial assembly line so deeply that we treat our own unstructured time as well as a moral failing.
It's a heavy, suffocating weight, always needing to be on. And that friction is exactly what we're dissecting today. Welcome to the inaugural deep dive of our new series, The Shoemaker's Compass.
I'm so excited we're finally launching this.
Me too. Because the mission today isn't just to sit here and complain about hustle culture. We want to explore a pragmatic framework for authentically redefining success.
Right, without the naive fantasy of, just quitting your day job, moving into a van, and pretending the economy doesn't exist.
Because, let's be real, bills exist. And our guide for this entire series is a guy named Mostafa. He's a working professional, and he created the blog The Shoemaker's Compass, which this podcast series is basically an audio companion to.
Yeah, and reading through his diary entries, you immediately feel this intense emotional contrast. Like, on one page, he meticulously captures that suffocating grip of corporate burnout.
Oh, completely. You can practically hear the fluorescent office lights buzzing.
Exactly, you feel the tension in your jaw. But then he pivots to these expansive descriptions of the liberating, lung-filling relief of escaping into raw nature.
It's such a stark difference. And he's not positioning himself as some all-knowing guru, right?
Not at all. He
Yeah.
works a full-time job. He's actively navigating this stuff in real time. He realized that the linear path he was promised would lead to happiness was really just, well, a highly efficient pipeline to exhaustion.
A pipeline to exhaustion. Wow. Let's unpack the psychology of that pipeline, because Mustafa's origin story maps out what he calls the classic chase. So he grew up in a small city in Lebanon, and he describes it beautifully. It was comfortable, it was scenic, but ultimately, he recognized it was a bubble.
Yeah, the bubble is critical context here, because in those highly structured, comfortable communities, success metrics are almost never questioned. They're just inherited.
Right, you're just handed the playbook.
Exactly. The sequence is absolute. You get the high grades, which gets you the scholarship, which is the key to the corporate job, which sets you up for the next raise. It's a completely unquestioned societal conveyor belt.
And society calls that conveyor belt ambition. We see someone sprinting on that treadmill, completely grinding away their weekends, and we applaud them.
We give them awards for it.
We do. But Mustafa had this sobering realization. He realized that what we call ambition is, more often than not, just incredibly well-dressed fear.
Oof. Yeah, that hits hard.
It really does. It's the terror of falling behind.
Yeah.
It's that panic of becoming irrelevant in a system that only values you based on, like, your last quarter's performance.
Well, and if you look at the underlying neuroscience, the distinction is actually very clear. Psychologists divide our drives into intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right?
Okay, break that down for us.
So healthy intrinsic ambition, the kind that actually fulfills you, is about moving towards something. You're exploring a curiosity because you want to. But fear-based hustling is purely extrinsic. You're constantly running away from a negative outcome.
Running from poverty or irrelevance or judgment.
Exactly, especially the judgment of your peers, which Mostafa notes was a huge factor in his specific upbringing. You're just living your entire life on defense.
Honestly, it reminds me of those endless free-to-play mobile games.
Oh, that is a perfect analogy.
Right. The developers intentionally use intermittent dopamine hits and the sunk cost fallacy to just keep you grinding.
Right.
You're chopping down digital trees to build a digital house, to store digital gold, to buy a better digital axe.
And you're completely miserable while doing it.
Yes, your neck hurts, your eyes are burning, but you can't stop. Because stopping means acknowledging the thousands of hours you've already wasted.
Yeah, and the real world does the exact same thing with corporate titles and salary bands. You aren't playing for joy, you're playing because the environment is engineered to punish you for pausing.
But here's the thing. There is a biological limit to how long you can sustain that pace. You can't just, like, white-knuckle your way through decades of cognitive dissonance. Eventually, the machine breaks.
It has to. It's inevitable.
And that's exactly what happened to Mostafa in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
Despite doing everything right, He hit a massive wall of burnout.
And we need to be really precise about what burnout actually is. It's heavily diluted in pop culture right now. People say, oh, I'm burned out, when they're just tired after a long week.
Right, but true burnout is different.
Completely different. It's a systemic physiological and psychological collapse. When your ambition is fear-based, your body is running on a continuous drip of cortisol. Eventually, your nervous system just pulls the plug.
It just flat out refuses to play the video game anymore.
Exactly. It's an evolutionary defense mechanism.
So this biological shutdown forced Mostafa into absolute stillness. The noise of the chase was gone because he literally couldn't run anymore. And in that quiet, he asked himself a terrifyingly simple question.
Which was?
He wrote, if money wasn't an issue and I had endless resources, what would I actually do with my days?
Wow. People use that as like a casual icebreaker at networking events.
I know, right?
But asking it in the depths of a physiological collapse, that strips away all the theoretical fluff. It becomes a diagnostic tool.
And he didn't find the answer sitting in his apartment. The clarity hit him during a hike in a quiet, remote mountain village in Lebanon called Afka.
Afka.
He describes standing there in the absolute stillness of the hills, and the truth just clicked. He realized he is fundamentally, at his core, a nature guy.
Which is pretty much the polar opposite of his daily life.
In violent opposition, he confesses that the persona he projects, the extrovert at the office desk, is a complete fabrication. Deep down, he just wants to disappear to a quiet cabin and grow his own food.
So he's essentially an introvert masquerading as a hyper-ambitious corporate extrovert.
Exactly.
The psychological burden of that is staggering. In sociology, they call it emotional labor, specifically surface acting.
Surface acting. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, if you naturally value autonomy and quiet, but you're forced to spend 10 hours a day performing aggressive extroversion, you're not just doing your job, you're actively suppressing your true self to maintain a character.
You're acting in a play you despise every single day, just to pay for the privilege of coming back and doing it again tomorrow. It really forces a mirror up to all of us, like how much of our daily personality is genuinely ours and how much is just a survival tactic.
Yeah. Oh, totally. You laugh at the joke you don't find funny. You stay late just to be seen. Slowly, those survival tactics become your default. You lose access to the person who just wants to stand quietly in the hills.
Which brings us to the existential question. Once you realize you're just acting, how do you take the mask off without starving? Because Mostafa didn't dramatically flip his desk and quit his job.
No, and that's the brilliance of his approach. It's grounded in material reality. He didn't want a destructive exit. He transitioned into actionable, incremental steps.
Right, he started remarkably small. He just began hiking on weekends. And that small shift cascaded into his first real adventure outside the Lebanese bubble, which was a trip to Jordan.
Oh, the Jordan trip. The way he documents this in the blog is incredibly striking.
It really is. He's wandering through Petra, floating in the Dead Sea, and he comes back home with these wild salt crystals in his bag.
Which is such a profound symbol.
It is. He explicitly notes that this trip to Jordan was his very first goal that had absolutely zero connection to his resume.
No networking, no upskilling, just pure human experience.
Think about the visual of those jagged salt crystals sitting on his desk.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine them sitting right next to a generic acrylic corporate award. You know, the cheap plastic trapezoid that says Q3 top performer.
Ugh. Yes, the juxtaposition there tells the entire story of modern alienation. The plastic award is just an incredibly cheap way for the corporation to validate the extrovert mask and keep you on the treadmill.
But the salt crystal.
The salt crystal enforces autonomy. It says, I exist in the physical world independent of my economic output.
Exactly. And this brings us to the core purpose of the Shoemaker's compass. Because he recognizes he still has to exist in the world where those acrylic awards are handed out. He's not independently wealthy.
Right. He is not selling a fake dream. He is not pushing some noisy day trading class on you.
Thank goodness. The blog and this podcast exist for one real reason: accountability. It is so easy to have an epiphany on a mountain and then slowly let the daily grind pull you back to sleep.
Oh, it happens all the time. Your dreams just fade. So the Shoemaker's compass is his public obligation to learn, document, and share with a community of like-minded people. Is how he stays awake.
So what can you actually expect from this series? We're focusing on two main things. First, expedition blueprints. Mostafa is a meticulous planner. He minds his budget and his limited vacation days to plan these adventures.
And he's sharing the exact blueprints so others can do the same. He's providing the logistical scaffolding so you can replicate the escape while keeping your 9 to 5.
Exactly. And the second thing is financial and tech lessons. Because surviving the corporate world requires a system. He's on a journey to build financial freedom to, quote, buy back his time.
Yeah, he wants to kill the underlying anxiety of the treadmill. He still works hard, but the motivation has shifted. He's using the system to eventually escape the system.
But wait, I had to challenge this concept of financial freedom. Because I know people are thinking about the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early.
The whole fire thing, yeah.
Right. People obsessively tracking every penny, living on rice and beans, refusing to socialize. Isn't buying back your time just another, maybe more obsessive form of hustling?
Well, that is the defining trap of the FIRE movement. Many of those folks just transfer their anxiety from their boss to their stock portfolio.
Oh, wow.
They rely on extreme deprivation. The psychological mechanism is still fear. They starve their present self to buy a hypothetical future, which just keeps the nervous system flooded with cortisol anyway.
So how does Mostafa's framework avoid that trap?
By fixing the finish line. When your goal is just more money, the finish line constantly evaporates. But Mostafa's goal is specific. Enough resources to buy back his time so he can be in nature.
So it's a finite goal rooted in his actual identity.
Exactly. And crucially, he leverages modern technology to do it. He's learning and sharing how to use AI and automation in his daily workflow to literally automate tasks.
Wait, so the tech and AI aren't tools to do more work for the company?
No, they're tools to do the required work faster so he can create more space for life right now. He's literally using AI to buy back his Tuesday afternoons.
That completely reframes how we look at productivity tools. And he applies that anti-hustle philosophy to this series too.
Yes, we need to be very clear about the frequency of this podcast.
Definitely. This is an ongoing series, but we will not be dropping episodes daily. Episodes will drop bi-weekly or even once a month.
The rule is simple: no spamming. We refuse to play the algorithm's game. We'll only release an episode when the compass has something truly valuable to share.
Which gives everyone the mental bandwidth to focus on the second pillar of Mostafa's philosophy, which is simply seeing things. His goal is to collect stories for his old age and build a home where every corner tells a story.
It's a redefinition of wealth. We're conditioned to pursue material wealth like expensive furniture that signals status, but Mostafa is pursuing narrative wealth.
Narrative wealth, I love that term, like the jar of wild salt from the Dead Sea.
Exactly. It signals a life actually lived.
And building narrative wealth means redefining adventure. Mostafa says he actively skips the fancy stuff.
Because the fancy stuff is usually just the corporate status game exported to a beach somewhere.
So true. We don't need the luxury cruises or the skyscrapers to feel alive. Sometimes we're just done with crowds.
Yeah.
His ultimate goal is trading concrete for raw nature, where the air is free and the noise is gone.
Because true luxury, in the modern context, isn't a more expensive artificial environment. True luxury is the total absence of demands. It's silence.
True luxury is the absence of demands. That's incredible. So as we wrap up this inaugural episode, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to mull over. If you magically achieved absolute financial freedom tomorrow, if the endless resources were suddenly sitting in your bank account, what specific character or persona would you immediately stop playing in your life?
What's the very first mask you would take off?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And more importantly, why wait until you're rich to start dropping the act? Are there micro compromises you can stop making today? Small ways to step out of character and reclaim a piece of your authenticity, even while you're still on the clock.
That's the real challenge. You don't just plan for a future escape. You carve out pockets of undeniable authenticity right now in the daily grind.
Could not have said it better. Thank you for joining us for this first dive into the Shoemaker's Compass. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button so you don't miss these sparse but high-quality updates.
We'd love for you to pull up a chair to the compass.
We really would. We encourage you to seek out the blog if you're looking for those practical blueprints today. But for now, take a moment to step away from the screen, drop the character for just a few minutes, and take a real deep breath of fresh air. Catch you next time.